For a series that looks like a romantic comedy series, Classroom of the Elite develops its story to the point that it's quite disturbing to read. At first, this series looks fun with a self-insert protagonist and a lot of fan service. However, the more volume released, the more you realize that this series is not really suited for the teenagers. Even from the first volume, we are already introduced to the ANHS caste system, Kushida's dual personality, and Koenji who refused to give his seat to the elderly. While it could still be tolerated, the story became way darker the more new volumes released. So, let's take a look at it one by one. Let's start with the main character, Ayanokoji Kiyotaka. A lot of people like him as a character because he is cool and smart, and also very strong and emotionless. However, as the story progressed and we learned more about Ayanokoji, we should agree that Ayanokoji is a sociopath who has a very strong tendency to become evil. He is cruel, manipulative, and has zero empathy for the others. While Ayanokoji gains immense popularity thanks to his nature, I don't see a lot of people ever thinking what kind of person Ayanokoji will turn out to be. Just by his personality, it wouldn't be strange if he ended up becoming a joker who took 2 ships hostage just to play a little special exam to decide which ship will be expelled. Or, Ayanokoji could even create his own Squid Games because he believes humans have a lot of potential as long as they are playing with their lives at stake. Fortunately, Ayanokoji currently has a mindset to not bother himself with a troublesome matter unless he takes an interest in that problem. However, since he will most likely return to the White Room, or become his father's subordinate in the political world, the future where Ayanokoji is doing all kinds of immoral things doesn't sound impossible at all. Ayanokoji doesn't have the boundary of morals like a regular person, so it will be easy for him to become a corrupt politician who will do anything to achieve his goal. His high school version of him already told us how far Ayanokoji could go if nobody stopped him, so Ayanokoji with power and wealth will be nothing but a menace to society. That's why I don't think we are supposed to root for him to win, because if he never corrects his mindset, who knows what kind of devil he will turn out to be. Ayanokoji's contribution to making this series darker is big, but he is not alone on this matter. We have an adult who tries to lure a minor, a big brother who abuses his sister, a dictator who builds his own kingdom by expelling anyone he wants, a future yakuza who literally tortures and poisons people, and a girl who's probably already experienced with 100 men. It's easy to put this aside since the nature of ANHS allows all kinds of students to exist. But the more you think about it, the more you realize you cannot recommend this series to your high school nephew. Even though they are just high schoolers, this series really touched the ugly side of people and turns it into a story. In Volume 2 we got a sexual assault attempt from an adult who deluded his favorite idol into liking him back. In Volume 4 we got attempted murder in the form of Karizawake bullying. And worst of all, we got Atsuomi and Ayanokoji's backstory in Volume 7. The adult in this story is not any better. For starters, we rarely see any students who have a good relationship with their parents. Harikita's parents are busy working, Karizawa's parents probably don't care about her, Sudo's and Yukimura's mothers left their families, and then we have the lowest of the low in the form of Atsuomi. Atsuomi, Tsukishiro, and Shiba, they are all dangerous people who are not supposed to be allowed around children. Not to mention we got to see Chika's father literally throw away his illegitimate children to the White Room in Volume 0. That alone should be enough as proof that Classroom of the Elite is not a story that you should read with your parent. Some people might say that ANHS is a revolution in the educational world, one of the best schools that create hundreds of promising alumni every year. However, the way ANHS operates is far from being respectable. For a starter, ANHS classifies their students, separating the gifted and the defective, and let them compete in a very unfair environment. You probably believe Class D has a chance to compete, but that is only the case in Ayanokoji's generation. In the previous grade, Class D is fated to suffer. Not only will they lose most of their class points in the first month, but even the teacher will purposely give them unfair treatment such as not telling them about the change in exam subject. With a lot of low academic students put in Class D, there will always be a student who gets expelled because of it, and that alone puts them way behind the other classes. Harikita's class manages to survive thanks to Ayanokoji being placed in their class, but if Ayanokoji had never existed, they would only suffer for 3 years of their high school. Humiliated, manipulated, and then graduated without any promising future. The worst part is, that is not the darkest part of ANHS. Thanks to Class A privilege, some students were even willing to die as long as they could graduate as Class A. We have seen a few students betraying their own class, selling out their own classmates, or even making a mistake that will haunt them forever, and they are willing to do that because that is just how ANHS operates. They give the students private points as their bargaining power. They create a rule to let students transfer class using 20 million points, and then they create the ultimate rule that only Class A will get the privilege. With that kind of system, betrayal will always bound to happen. There are also a few special exams that we need to talk about. While a few exams have an expulsion as the penalty, it could be tolerated because the expulsion can be avoided. However, there are a few special exams where the expulsion couldn't be avoided. Not just inevitable, the class even got a reward by expelling a student. Just look at the class bowl exam as an example. In exchange for expelling a useless student, one useful student could get the protection point as the reward, and in the unanimous vote exam, the class could get 100 class points by expelling one student. This kind of system is clearly not made for teenagers, because as we can see in Chabashira's case, it creates a lifelong trauma and regret just because she chose to value her love and friendship over 100 class points. It's sad to read because shonen or shoujo stories usually told us that friendship and love will always bear fruit, but Classroom of the Elite chose to give us a reality. In this world, the one who holds everyone behind will be cut off, and when the better offer comes, the one who is valued less than the offer will be sacrificed. I guess teaching the students the reality of this world is a good thing, but still, that is not something that you should force a high school student to do. And now let's talk about the darkest part of Classroom of the Elite, which is the facility called the White Room. The White Room was originally founded with the initial purpose of creating the best education for the unfortunate children. However, the way Atsuomi is running the facility is enough to put him in jail for eternity. For starters, some of the babies were obtained from child trafficking, and the basic education of the White Room is by punishing them to force the brain to grow, which clearly falls into child abuse. The curriculum is also insane, where it causing hundreds of students to drop out. Some of them ended up traumatized for life, and according to Tsukishiro, most of them turned out to be useless with a lot of issues. It's clear that the White Room already ruined a lot of children's lives, but for Atsuomi, they are simply a necessary sacrifice. Volume 0 took the darkness of this series to another level, where we could see the world of adults who also responsible for creating the ANHS system. Their world is filthy, and I'm glad Volume 0 is not necessarily forced to become part of the main series. We saw Atsuomi willing to do all kinds of shady jobs just to survive in the political world, and we also saw how lightly Tsukishiro treated a human life, and that made Volume 10 where Tsukishiro became ANHS director more disgusting to read. So, with all of those aspects combined, it's clear that Classroom of the Elite is not as bright and fun as the promotional illustrations try to portray it. The fan service is already hard enough to make it R18, but with all the previous factors combined, I think we really need to consider if this is still a suitable story for a high schooler or not.